Well, guys, looks like we gotta try and savor this episode of Superman and Lois once again because guess what? We're going on another break. And not only like a week break like we had before, this time it's like a whole month without Superman and Lois in between episodes here, which is just insane and really not fun to deal with, but it's not something we can control, so we just gotta go with it, I guess. Now, as for this episode itself, though, it was kind of a weird episode because it didn't have Superman in it, which obviously isn't like necessarily a bad thing, but it just felt like nothing huge happened, at least when it comes to the main storyline here, because like everything going on was like smaller stuff. Small to the point where it's like it didn't really even do anything to progress those stories forward or anything, or at least not big enough for me to need to talk about them in this video, like the relationship between John Henry and his daughter Natalie. Like, sure, that was cool and I enjoyed seeing that stuff, but it's not really anything we need to talk about. There's nothing huge going on there. Same goes for Kyle and Sarah and their whole thing. Now, if you can't tell already, my voice is a little messed up because I got a stuffy nose and haven't been feeling really all that great lately. But, you know, it's Superman and Lois, especially since it's our last episode for, like, the next month. We gotta make them sacrifices, so I'm still gonna do the video anyway. I apologize for my voice in this, but, we're gonna make it work. So anyways, guys, before we get into this, of course, quick spoiler warning. If you've not seen the episode, make sure to go check it out on the CW. And now, without further ado, let's jump into this and break down Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 9. Where the episode follows up after last week's cliffhanger of Lucy Lane knocking out her father, Sam Lane, stealing his DOD badge, saying something about, I need to save Allie or make sure she gets to the other side or something like that. And that's exactly what happens. Allie Alston is broken out of the DOD, she suits up, and she goes through the portal in the mines to the inverse, where, of course, then Superman follows her, and that is the only time that we see Tyler Hoechlin's Superman in this episode. Which, again, isn't a bad thing. I mean, you can do shows and, like, episodes without the main character. Like, you don't always need the main character there, but I just feel like, not enough happened in this episode to warrant that. But I am really excited to see what happens in next week's episode, not next week's episode, I guess next month's episode, when we get the explanation of, like, what happened to Clark and what he was doing in the inverse. So anyway, we get a bit of a time jump here. So 1 month later, Superman is still missing. We have John Henry now suited up as Steel again, and he's being deemed on the news as the new Man of Steel, which I thought was pretty cool considering that in the comics, the whole reason that John Henry Irons suits up as Steel is after the death of Superman, and so he tries to fill that void that Superman left behind with the whole Reign of the Superman storyline. So I enjoyed seeing that kind of reference there. Also, just cool to see him back in action in general. But we also have Jordan now kind of trying to fill that role as well in a more vigilante type role. And we see him doing just some smaller stuff, just with the hood on, just saving people. Like he saved Kyle from a fire. So that was pretty cool. He flies for the first time. I really enjoyed seeing that. But we find out that fire is actually connected to the distribution of the X-Kryptonite. So this is when Jonathan comes into it. Of course, we know that he knows who the supplier is. And with some convincing, he ends up giving up that it was Candace because he was promised immunity from the DOD and, she's not going to get in trouble. So he finally gives her up and they have a big conversation and we find out some more information, which then leads to Sam and Lois going to investigate the X-Kryptonite distribution factory warehouse thing. But of course, they get caught. And Jordan shows up and saves the day, using his superpowers and everything. Honestly, really cool. The effects here, like when the lasers were shot at him from the X-Kryptonite guy, and then he was like in slow motion. He was just like moving out of the way. I thought that was really cool, and I enjoyed seeing that. But also in this episode, we have the day of the mayoral election. So Lana, of course, ends up winning. Who saw that coming? I know I did. But I'm glad she did, obviously, because that Mayor Dean or whatever his name was a real jerk. So I'm glad Lana won, and I'm excited to see what kind of role she now takes in Smallville, obviously as mayor, but how things are going to change for her and her family. Because we already have one big change for our family at the end of this episode. When Sarah breaks up with Jordan, she gives back the necklace and says, I can't be second. Because, of course, he's always disappearing. He's always missing stuff. Because he's a vigilante. Because his father's Superman. And because he's doing superpowered stuff. And obviously he can't tell her about that. But she won't be second to that. Which, very understandable. Like, I can see where she's coming from, and honestly, go her. Like you deserve better. But also, it's not his fault, and it's just hard not to feel bad for him. And I am wondering to see where this goes, whether they do eventually end up getting back together, or maybe what I think is more likely is that Sarah goes and possibly officially becomes a thing with, was it Avery or Aubrey? Whoever the girl was at camp that she kissed and has been talking to again lately. Either her or maybe sparks a romance with Natalie, which I've been theorizing about for a while now. I wouldn't mind seeing that, but then again, just feel bad for Jordan, like, a lot. But at least John's love life isn't going too bad. He's walking Candace home, and all of a sudden he gets this weird, headache thing, like something's going on with his head, and I have a feeling that means that his powers are kicking in finally, and it's about time. I'm really excited to see him get powers that's not through X-Kryptonite and actually his real, organic, natural powers, so I'm excited to see that. But then speaking of John, the big ending of the episode is that the inverse version of Jonathan shows up at the Kent farm and says Superman was too late. Now, this inverse Jonathan is like a punk rock version of the character, and this outfit we actually saw in some set photos a couple months ago, and his outfit is actually inspired by Superboy in the comics. I believe the New 52 version of Superboy. So I think that's pretty cool, because I saw those set photos and I thought that it was actual Jonathan. I was confused, whoa, they're making him a superhero already, but no, that's the inverse version. So I'm excited to see that story fold out in next month's episode on April 26th. So literally is a month from now, which kind of sucks, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it. But guys, that it was Superman and Lois season 2, episode 9. Again, that's the big stuff. There were some other stuff going on here, but not really anything that we need to talk about. But you can let me know your own thoughts on this episode in the comments below. All your thoughts, theories, and predictions for next episode. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep it to date on everything goes on in the DC life. In the DC life.